Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I hope you're doing very well. I have had the great honor and privilege of being able to speak to you over the course of a number of videos about this set from the Criterion collection, Spine 1000, Godzilla, the Showa era films, 1954 to 1975. And oh gosh, what a great set this is. Warts and all, criticisms and the like. Of course, I acknowledge those exist, but it is still, I think, a very worthwhile set to consider. So with that, my friends, here are just some closing comments or some final thoughts that I have about the set. And I think that it is a set that we should remember seems to be focusing its energies on presenting to North American audiences, for the first time in any official release anyway, the Japanese cuts of the films of the Showa era, the Japanese prints of these films. Therefore, the philosophy behind this set seems to be, again, the presentation of the quote-unquote original versions. Now, I've mentioned this in other videos. This might not suit all Godzilla fans across the world, and I get that. And therefore, this might be considered to be a disappointment to many people who are Godzilla fans. That is perfectly reasonable, and that is a fine and legitimate opinion to have, and especially considering the fact that this set is not inexpensive, it's not cheap. So if you want to buy something that is of this price, you better like what it has to offer, right? That's a perfectly reasonable approach to have. And so if there are any faults to the set for you, then it might be worth just holding off on purchasing the set until you really feel like you want to have it. And so I think the fact that this presents mainly the Japanese versions of the films, I think, could be seen as being a detriment. And I would acknowledge that perhaps that could be one of the things that would prevent some people from really wanting to get this set. And I respect that approach 100%. Also, there is the issue of the lack of commentary tracks for all of the films, which does stand out, unfortunately. And I see, therefore, that there could have been some things that could have been done with this film set that ended up not happening for intellectual property rights issues, perhaps licensing issues, we can speculate. But be that as it may, the final product is the final product, which is right here. But that is not to say that it is a dud. On the contrary, I think this is an exemplary set, a fine set from the Criterion collection, for some of the reasons that I did state in past videos. For example, the fine essays that are being provided by Steve Reifel and Ed Godzilla, and also the really beautiful and stunning artwork that is being provided here. And also, perhaps most important of all, the very fact that we are getting the Japanese releases of the films, including King Kong vs. Godzilla, for the first time in a North American official release like this. So that is, I think, great cause for celebration. For anyone who is interested in Godzilla films, anyone who wants to examine and explore the Godzilla films in the versions that were released in Japan originally. So this is really great. You know, again, there could have been more. We could have had more films. Where was Mothra, for instance? Where is the film Rodan? Those aren't found in this set. There are no other kaiju films included in this set. They could have been, because there are some other kaiju films that were related to Godzilla. For instance, Varan, Frankenstein vs. Baragon, Atragon, right, so, and there were other TV shows from Japanese TV in the early 1970s that also featured Godzilla in guest roles. It would have been nice, perhaps, to see some of those episodes. The TV show is called Zone Fighter. And for instance, here is a DVD of some of the episodes that I have. You can see on the cover Godzilla's there. And so this DVD of the TV show from Japan, Zone Fighter, has some episodes with Godzilla actually featured. So it would have been nice, for instance, to have some of those episodes with Godzilla featured being included as part of the supplements of this set. But c'est la vie, as it were. But those points aside, I think the exclusion of materials like that, I don't think harms the set, because once again the focus is on the Showa era films of Godzilla, 1954 to 1975. So that is a lot right there. 15 films plus the 2 US release versions for Godzilla and King Kong vs. Godzilla respectively. So we have 17 films altogether. Therefore, I think if we, returning to my initial point, if we look at what seems to me, anyway, to be the philosophy behind this release, that is the presentation of the Japanese versions of these films to the North American market for the first time in one complete set like this. Therefore, I think this set is incredibly important and very worthwhile. It is a sort of example of excellent presentation in terms of the aesthetics of the set itself, and most importantly, for me anyway, it is the presentation of the Japanese versions of the films, which I humbly submit for your attention that, and I would suggest, with the greatest respect, of course, that the Japanese versions are, for the most part, the ones to watch. These are the ones to watch if one is interested in watching Godzilla films. Are they, is it the complete story? Of course not. Of course not. The US release versions, the various English dubs, English language versions that exist of these films are themselves their own source of history. And we shouldn't deny that, and I certainly don't. But hopefully one day those versions will be made more readily available. They aren't impossible to track down outside of Criterion, of course, as I've tried to suggest in other videos. But they aren't included here, right? So we can look at that as a weakness, or we can look at that as being a further indication of what I suggest as being the possibility of the philosophy of this set, namely the presentation of the Japanese versions of the Godzilla films. And if that's the philosophy, my friends, then I think this is a worthwhile set to have. With that in mind, my friends, it is still very expensive. It is a very expensive set. So if you are thinking of getting this, then it might be worthwhile to try to get it during a sale when you can get a good discount on it. It is also worthwhile to remember that, as far as I can tell, at the moment anyway, the films are available to watch on the Criterion channel, the Criterion streaming service, of course. And so if you are on the fence, if you are not sure as to whether Godzilla is your cup of tea, then I would suggest, as a means of just double checking, don't buy the set until you have seen a couple of the Godzilla films first, and then just making sure that you like the films before getting the set. So check out some of the films beforehand, and then if you are okay with those films, then I would suggest getting the set, especially because it is quite a lot of money. So, you can check out films like Godzilla and maybe Mothra vs. Godzilla, or King Kong vs. Godzilla, or even Destroy All Monsters, or just some of those films, just to get a sense of what the Godzilla films are, and then seeing if it's still worthwhile for you to get the set and watch them. I love the film, so I hope in my heart that the answer to that question is that you will end up loving the films and therefore getting the set. So that's my hope, of course, because I am on the side of loving these films. I do acknowledge, of course, though, that these films are not for everyone. Not everyone likes Godzilla. I know some people despise these films, and so that's fine. I completely respect that approach as well, and I respect that viewpoint tremendously. I hope that my love of these films does not in any way affect your own viewing of what films that you like. In other words, I feel that one's love of one film shouldn't necessarily block anyone from loving the films that he or she likes, right? So the filmscape and the world of cinema is vast and wide, and it's a wide tent, and it should be welcoming to everyone. That is my belief, and I continue to believe that. So and I do therefore acknowledge that these films are not for everyone. So they don't have to be, and you don't need to buy this set if you don't like the films or you don't like Godzilla. That is perfectly fine as well. But be that as it may, it is still available for those who are interested. And so if you are interested and you want to get a taste for what the Japanese versions of these films are, then there is no better place, my friends, to go than the set from Criterion. That is the Godzilla Showa era films 1954 to 1975, Spine 1000 from the Criterion collection, released in late 2019. It's a really great set. Okay, my friends, so that is it for me and the Godzilla set here. Who knows, maybe in the future on this channel I'll try to talk more specifically about the films of Godzilla. As I say, I'm a big fan of the films, in particular Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Maybe one day, who knows, I might try to talk about those films in more detail, maybe in a live stream or something, who knows. I still haven't decided yet, but I do really want to thank all of you for your time, your efforts, your energy, all of your comments, and just for your enthusiasm for cinema. It has been so lovely to be able to talk with all of you, and I look forward to our continuing conversations going forward, my dear, dear friends. So that's it for me for now. Until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please, please, please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. So until we meet again, my friends, cheers and be well.